If it doesn't make sense to spend $4,000 to $6,000 on having your bear hide made into a rug, then maybe a European mount might be the way to go to immortalize your trophy. Just some various knives and pliers. The wire brush is one particularly important piece, as well as a wire to get the meat in and out of the pot. I do like having a Dremel, I use the Dremel to cut the back of the skull out. Obviously you're going to need something to heat up the water with, and then just an old aluminum pot that's big enough for the skulls to fit down inside. You'll also need some type of bleaching agent to whiten the skull up after you're done cleaning it up. If you're going to put your European mount in the house, this stuff is probably the most important thing that you're going to need through this process. You can buy it at the grocery store, but I'll talk a little bit later in the video about why. I'm just going to go through the basic steps on this pretty quick. This is a bear that I got last spring. So the first step is in boiling these to do the European mounts is to take the hide off. Okay, now that we've got the hide off, I'm just going to go back and cut all the extra meat off. So as the water's heating up, we're just going to add a little borax to this. Don't need tons, but maybe a cup or two. For cooking these, you just want to have the water up to a boil. However, you don't want to get it to like a heavy boil. If the water gets too hot, it will crack the teeth. You'll start having trouble with the bones coming apart. So we just want enough water in that pan to submerge that completely. Drop it in there. About every 10 minutes or so, we're going to take it out and cut everything that's loose off and then drop it back in there. First chance you get, you want to separate the jaw from the skull. But now it just makes it a lot easier to get all of this in here. This area in the back is always going to be the toughest part. There's a lot of connective tissue and really hard stuff to clean out of here. On the back of the skull here, where the brain cavity is, there's just this tiny hole right here. It is a nightmare to try to get this entire brain cavity clear down into the nasal, cleaned out through that little hole. So what we're going to do is take that die grinder that I was showing you earlier, and we're just going to cut a notch out of the back of this around through here and then break that out, and that way we've got a much bigger space to clean that. Here's one that I already did to clean that cavity out. Otherwise you'll never get enough out of there to make sure that there's no smell. So after we get this kind of opened up here, we'll just take this, what we call a grapefruit spoon. It's got the little serrated edges around it, and get as much of the gunk out of there as you can. And I'm going to take these pliers. You can kind of reach down in here and pull some of this stuff loose that you can't get out with the spoon. Makes it a little bit easier. And the last part of this, you're just kind of going to take one of your knives and just scrape the rest of this tissue and whatever meat is left on there. So this wire brush that I was talking about earlier, this is when this comes in handy. When you're just about done, the last couple times that you take this out of the boiling water, just run this wire brush around here, and it allows to get all the tiny little pieces that are still kind of stuck around, especially around the teeth on the back side. It just really gives you a much more finished result. A little tip and something to be careful of when you're cleaning this jawbone off. You can see this seam that goes right down the middle of this. That is a weak point in this. If you get to pushing too hard on the side, you can break this thing right in half. So now that we got this thing all cleaned up nicely and brushed down, the last part will be just bleaching, getting it ready to mount. Okay, finally got everything cleaned up. Got my buck, my son's bear, and my bear all cleaned up and ready to bleach. You can order bleaching supplies from taxidermy shops or probably pick them up at sportsman shops or whatever, but They can be a little bit expensive, and any bleaching stuff works really well. I just picked this stuff up, had my wife grab this from the local hair salon. It's for bleaching hair. It works really, really good for the skulls. And the thing that I like most about it, it doesn't turn on bright white. I don't like the skulls that turn out so white that they look like plastic or ceramic. I want a little bit of rustic, realistic look to these. Okay, so this is the bleaching. This is the activator. This is just a super fine powder. And to make sure that you're doing this in a very well ventilated place, and we're going to pour just enough of this activator in here and stir it up until it's a little bit thinner than the consistency of toothpaste, and then we're just going to brush it on. Okay, this stuff has a super strong ammonia smell, hence, well, ventilated area. We're going to take the jawbones and turn them upside down so the teeth are pointed down, so there's not much touching on the piece of plywood, so it doesn't rub the bleach off. I'm not going to put bleach on the antlers, and I'm not going to put bleach on the teeth. I like those natural colors, obviously the antlers, but I never put bleach on the teeth. But I'm just going to take a big old brush and just basically start painting this stuff on. Underside, and you want to put this stuff on pretty thick, but just cover the whole thing. It'll kind of foam up a little bit after it sits for a while, but you want to have a nice thick layer. So this stuff should stay where you put it. You can just kind of dab it on. If you find it's a little bit like it's running off or it's not staying where you put it, just mix a little bit more of the powder in, thicken it up some. So just a nice heavy coating in every spot that you want bleached. We're going to put these in a place that's well ventilated where they will dry and kind of cure for about 10 to 14 days. Then we're going to rinse them off in some warm water. That bleaching agent will kind of foam up a little bit more and dry. So when you rinse it off in the warm water, it comes off very easy. It just rinses right off. And then we'll set these off to the side after they're rinsed. Let them completely cure and dry. And we'll be ready to put these babies up with the rest. Which brings me back around to my point about the borax. The importance of the borax is to prevent the skulls from smelling after they're finished and mounted. Using the borax the entire time through the cleaning and the boiling will prevent exactly that from happening. You'll be able to put them anywhere in the house. They'll look beautiful and they won't have any smell at all. Thanks for hanging out in the workshop with me while I showed my process for European mounting bear skulls. This spring, hopefully I'll be able to harvest a couple more bears. I'm going to do a series on how to process bear meat, how to make sausage. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss those videos coming up this spring.